going to be looking at how to draw a muscular girl for your anime and manga characters. My plan is for this one, I'm not going to make her look like Hulk. We could do that later, but for right now, just making a sort of lean, muscular girl with good muscle tone though. So that way you can kind of see the muscle groups, how they look, and we can exaggerate them or shrink them as much as you want. However, but just as a disclaimer first, I am using Clip Studio Paint. You can use whatever art program you want, or you can use pencil and paper. Just keep in mind if you're working on paper to draw your construction lines really faintly and finely. That way when you erase, it's not going to show up in your finished product as you're making corrections. So for starters, I'm just using my lowermost layer at 30% opacity, so that way I can just clearly tell my line art layer apart from my construction layer. So we're just going to start by putting in a small circle. Doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Just kind of tidy mine up a little bit here. Doesn't have to be perfect. I am going to shrink my circle down though, just to ensure I've got enough room to put my character in it. Then I'm going to put a ruler down the middle here for our center line. We're going to build the character off of this line. So we'll try to get the balance and symmetry right. So first, starting from the widest part of our head circle here, I'm going to drop down my jawline, like so. I'm just using kind of a simple, sort of classic anime jawline here. Nothing too fancy. I don't want it to be too long, otherwise then it starts looking a little bit masculine. So going for kind of a short jawline here. And I'm just using lots of little brush strokes until I get a shape that I like. Clean this up a little bit. There we go. Alright, then we just want to drop in our shoulder line just below the chin here. Now, even though this is going to be a muscular character with a lot of muscle tone built off, we're still not going to use a super wide rib cage. We want to use one that's just barely larger than the head. So I'm going to put in this little oval shape here just to indicate that. When we draw larger and larger characters, like if you're drawing a really muscular character, you can increase the size of this just, much larger. That way you have a lot more room to put a bunch of muscle on. For this, our character is muscular, but not to like Hulk proportions. But a good way we can exaggerate a muscular character is by, instead of putting our shoulder circles in here like normal, we're going to have them outside. That way it gives them broader shoulders. So next I'm going to just drop in my collarbone by following the top of this vague shoulder circle and bringing it over and down like that. Then put in my neck, and this time with larger traps since she's going to have more muscle. Okay. Next we want to put in our hip line. Drop in around here, so it's basically an entire head height below the base of my ribs here. Then for this, because our character is going to be so muscular, of course you can make the hips as wide or as short as you want, but I'm going to keep my hips inside of these shoulder circles. That way we can kind of exaggerate more the width of her shoulders. So then I'm just going to connect these. Now I'm going to keep the hip here really pointed. And the reasoning being is because she's at a low body fat percentage, so her hips bones are going to be a little bit more exaggerated. Next, I'm just marking out my unmovable area right in here, since that's the actual hip bone itself. What I am going to do, though, is just pull my chest down a little bit for a longer neck. And then I'll just barely shrink these traps. There we go. Alright, so from there, just like how we always do it, we're just going to follow this rib line, just kind of straight down like this, just about to the halfway point. Then we're going to attach it to our hips with a line like this. And I'm going to use a concave line this time. Just again, she's got low body fat percentage, so she's going to have a really tight core. Next, we're just going to drop in the lines. This time, it's going to be what's outlining the abs here, with a large lower ab down there. So I'm just going to kind of mark these out for myself, like so. Next, we can put in her legs. So I'll mark those out, drop my legs in. From there, we're just going to try to determine the height here. So I'm just using lines to mark out my feet, and then after that, I use a line to mark out where the knees would be. And then we can just kind of make our adjustments from there. So I'm going to bring this part down slightly. And I'll bring her feet down a little bit too. I think something like that. And then I'm definitely going to enlarge my character as a whole, just so that way it fills my page a bit better. So next I'm just going to put in some basic feet shapes. This isn't a foot tutorial, so this part you don't really have to take too incredibly seriously. We just want little placeholders here. So now, I'll just quick enlarge this. So this type of leg that we're going to draw is going to be far different from any that we've done before, because we've always kept our characters very soft, especially in the thigh areas, so very soft and round. However, with this, you're trying to find a balance between soft roundness but also firmness of the muscle. If you go too jagged and firm, then it starts looking more masculine, whereas the female muscle groups are still going to be a little less rigid looking. So we're going to do the inside of the thigh almost the same as we've done, except we're going to kind of keep it so when it sucks back in right in this area, it's a little bit more pointed. And then that's going to wrap around our knee, like so. And then we'll repeat over here, trying to keep that slight point in our inner thigh. Then, because she's got strong calves, we're going to pop that out and back in on our inside line here. And we'll add a little bump like so, since there's a calf muscle riding in below the knee on top of the leg bone there. Next, we're going to put in the outer thigh. So this time, we usually for our outer thighs have them something like this, where it's real wide here at the top and then it shrinks down. This time, it's actually not going to be shaped like that, because all of this little pudge here is actually typically fat. So what we're going to do this time, since she's at a low body fat percentage, we're going to keep it relatively straight until we hook back in and like this. So it keeps somewhat straight, then it really tucks in and curls up for the base of the quad. Now there's a quad muscle that's also just above the knee here that's going to kind of poke in like this. So I use a little circle above the knee, and then I just sort of guide it like a semi odd shaped teardrop. That way we can see the front quad muscle there. Then I'm going to just do that again over here. Increase the size of this one as well. There. Check this out. Guess my one quad needs to be a little bit larger here. And this needs to get rounded. Then for the outer calf, again, we're going to put in a little concave line here. It's where all the tendons are beside the knee. But then we're going to poke way out and then suck in sharply for some sharper calf muscles. And then we'll follow it up with a line beside our frontal calf muscle line here. Just because it's kind of a tubular muscle, something like that. So we're just gonna outline that. And then something like that. It looks like this side of my character is not as wide here, so I need to just pull out the hip a little bit. Something like that. It's much better. And then I can just shrink up this quad here just a little bit, so that way it matches my other one. Again, this part doesn't have to be perfect, this is just our construction lines, but we want to make sure that we have something that we can trace over for our actual hard lines. And I'm just going to throw in the bottoms of the glutes here, since those would be barely visible. Then we will put in her arms. So make sure that you put your elbow circles just below the bottom of the rib cage here. That's typically where they fall. Then our hands are going to be roughly the same height as our shoulder. Then I'm just going to use little hand placeholders here. I'm not trying to do anything too detailed or crazy, since it's just a figure study. But this time I'm going to really exaggerate her forearm muscle. And make sure this elbow follows the rear part of the arm. Then I'm just going to put in biceps like this. So notice how my shoulder, it's a lot more exaggerated than what we've ever done before. And then the bicep sort of crosses it like this. So it'll be much more visible in the line art section. But again, you just want to make sure you really exaggerate the forearms here, just because she's got a lot more muscle than our other characters. We're going to connect the rear of the arm to the elbow. Drop in our shoulders and our large biceps. And then from there, you just kind of want to play with the balance of it. If you want them bigger or smaller, I'm going to shrink this one just a little bit. Alright, and now for here, we can add in our chest. So we're going to put a line just below the shoulder line. That way we know our breasts have to fall in below that. And you can use whatever size you want here. For me, since I really want to still exaggerate this is a female character, I'm just going to give her a moderately large chest here. So again, we just kind of want to use water drop shapes here. And because they're just natural and hanging, they're not really going to be touching each other. They're going to kind of be out to the side. Like that. Just make sure this is large enough. There we go. So now we'll just get on to the line art portion here. I'm just going to use black. You can use whatever color fits your needs. And I'm not paying too much attention to the line quality for this, since this is just a figure study. I'm mostly trying to get the balance and symmetry pretty close. And whatever order of operations is easiest for you to draw in your characters. For me, I'm going, since she's got large enough breasts that they kind of cover stuff up, I'm just going to drop them in first. Then I'm going to put in my hands and forearm, since it is laying in front of the bicep. I'm going to drop that in, like so. Bicep. From that, I can attach my shoulders. She's got really broad, strong shoulders. And I'll do the same for my other hand. Like so. And this time I'll start from the collarbone section there. I'm gonna redo this shoulder. I like the shape of my other shoulder here, so I'm gonna try to just make it similar to that. I like the size and shape of it a lot better over there. There you go, that's a lot better. Then I'll drop in my neck. Kind of still a strong neck here, not too skinny. Strong traps, and my little lines for that. From here, because I gave her such a large chest, we only barely see the little section there from the ribs. Then I'll put in my hips, make sure that these are the same size here. There we go. Put my concave line, since she's very thin, like this. Next, I will drop in my abs, like this. From there, I will add in the firm part here at the bottom of the hip section that's not going to move. Add it in like so. And I'll start from my inner thigh around the knee like that. Then I can just put this quad muscle right here. And this one on the outside. So I'm gonna match what I did over on the right side a bit better. It's a little bit more pointed and exaggerated, kind of what we want for our female character. We still want to make sure the point is relatively high. It's still going to be at the thickest in the middle or just above. For your male characters, the thickest point's actually going to be a lot lower than that. It's like almost around the knee is where it's at the thickest. I just need it to be a little bit bigger here. And again, I'm just dropping in lines until I find one that is suitable. So, drop this one in. Drop in our feet. Our ankle on the inside is going to be higher than it is on the outside. So I'm just going to drop those in, like so. Then I will push the calf out to round it before I suck it back in. Then we'll put in our lines here for the muscle there. And there we go. So that would be our muscular anime character from the front. In part 2, we'll look at the same character but from the back, and there'll be a lot going on in the back muscles and hamstrings and stuff, so should be a lot new things there. So I will see you there.